Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
You and I are kind of similar. You may even be more good-hearted than me. I feel like you. Well,
but in our longing hearts, we're all the same.
Mutual respect and
yes.
A boundary might have been crossed that you right.
That's
so
correct.
Just an example
That's
of it is a great example. I appreciate that for giving me the example to even work with.
Let's be the change we want to see.
I've never seen differences negative. I've always been attracted to and intrigued by it. But we're looking for how are we similar? How are we the same? How can we all just get along?
We are links in a chain. Unimportant.
Hey.
What's up, everybody?
Thank you for coming, tuning in. Thank you for coming back, those who are regulars. And if you are new to us, I am Dr. Lynn, one of your co-hosts.
And I'm Justin.
And this is Working It Out Across Generations, where we talk all things conflict. I tell you, I am so thrilled to be able to come to you with some real topics. We've really been trying, especially this season. We found that things that are closer and closer to our own hearts and experiences, we have a whole lot more passion around. And so bringing them to you means that we're really even more invested in helping you to really not just understand what we're talking about, but finding ways to really resolve some of these issues that are happening in your own lives. Mm-hmm. And today's topic, a lot of people can relate to. I'm going to turn it over to Justin to tell us about it.
Yeah, today we're going to be talking about are sibling rivalries a beneficial or detrimental tool to building long-lasting relationships? Now, I think this came from, me just thinking about the fact that I'm a younger sibling. I've been a younger sibling my entire life. Kind of sucks. That's one reality of many that I live. But there's so much, that comes with it for me. And when it comes to thinking about that role in my life, good, bad, I kind of don't like using the whole good and bad to describe it, but just ups and downs, you know what I mean? Like the roller coaster of experiences and emotions that come within fulfilling that role. Thinking about my experience as a younger brother, but also thinking about the fact that you're a younger sibling as well in your own right, and just kind of how sibling dynamics have shifted over time. You know what I mean? Like, are we getting closer as siblings? Are we falling more apart? Are we, showing more resilience, or are we leading to more estrangement, as we talked about in other episodes of this show, right? For me, siblinghood, being a sibling, it's probably one of my most proudest things that I've done and that I get to continue to do. I love my older brother. Shout out my older brother. He's the absolute man, laid a great foundation for me, and for not only where I want to go in life, but also just around, the people that, I want to have in my life, and just how I want certain things to look, and so firstly, thank you to bro for that. But also just thinking about, just some of the things that come up, the jealousy, the resentment, the whatever, right? All of those normal reactions and emotions that come up in these sibling dynamics, but also thinking about what happens when you don't tend to those wounds, or you don't tend to those feelings and catch them in the moment, and, really, place that emotion in a different way, channel it in a different way. Just what happens and what does that look like? And are we in a world that is making that easier for us to do, or to snap out of, or harder, right? We've seen sibling rivalries in, celebrities, right? In our musicians, in our actors, in our sports, heroes, and all these different, important roles in our lives. And so I really just wanted to start that conversation around siblinghood, considering that we definitely both take our role as younger siblings, but siblings in general, very seriously.
Yeah, I think also that what's important to say is that I'll speak for me, and I'll say that I'm never going to have a better friend than my sister. I only have one sister. I only have one sibling. I'm just never going to have a better friend than her. Real. Shout out to my sister, Leslie Gail Hurdle. Love you so much. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that we haven't had some sibling rivalry. Just as for you, being close to your brother doesn't mean that there wasn't sibling rivalry. So I want people to understand, because sometimes when they hear us say that, they think, oh, well, they're close, so they don't really understand the topic that well. But we do. And it's interesting because we're both younger, but I am the difference between my sister and I is only 13 months, and you and your brother are 6 years. So that also plays a role, and we'll talk about that
for sure
as well. Point. Yeah, and because that age difference plays a big difference. But I really was interested in this topic beyond us, and so I went to do some research, and according to Psychology Today, 15 to 20% of siblings have extreme estrangement, like the severe estrangement. They don't want to have anything whatsoever to do with their siblings. 28% of siblings said that they've had one period of time where there was some estrangement, and then 14% said that they had more than one period of time where there was estrangement. But 75% of siblings did not have any estrangement. But it doesn't mean that there isn't some real rivalry going on. And so the question being so does that make things better, or does it make things worse in the relationship? Listen, relationships are work. That's number one. And anybody who thinks that they're not encouraged to work on the relationship, that really can add to sibling rivalry. There are so many things that come up when we're talking about it, right? And looking at it, I'm thinking about some of the things that people have said to me. And one of the reasons why there is sibling rivalry is resources. And I think about that. My friends who come from large families are like, I had to get to the table first, right? Or I had no food left for me, or certainly not the good stuff, right? Yes, right. I can remember a good friend of ours who was sitting at our table one time, and he's one of 5, and he's the oldest. And your dad had made a big thing of fried chicken, and we're just sitting there talking, and he just eating, and he's like, hey, it's sitting here. I don't get this at home. I don't get to eat like this. Everybody else is grabbing for it. So I'm just having a good time just sitting here being able to eat as much as I want. So resources, I can remember, my mom, she sewed, and that's wonderful. She dressed us alike. We had the hand-me-downs, because that's what happens when you close in age, right? Yep. You can have the hand-me-downs. And it doesn't necessarily, because I remember I saved some of your brother's stuff for you too. So I know that it happens at a lot of ages between siblings, but there's a whole host of reasons, I think. Well, what do you think? Some of the reasons.
Reasons for what?
For sibling rivalry.
As to why it exists?
Yeah,
as to
yeah.
I think it's just you living under a roof with multiple people. And I also want to premise by saying, that sibling rivalries can also come from, people who have chosen family, right? People that they've, adopted into their own lives, right? And some of that sibling rivalry stuff, right? I know we have an only child in our views right now, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I believe some of that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Only children out there, please, right? Some of that stuff, maybe from being an only child, right, could shift into some of those relationship dynamics with chosen family, right? And so I think that it's just a natural thing when it comes to spending a lot of time with people, when it comes to going through different eras with people, right? So even just like going from elementary school to middle school when you have a phone now, right? It was juice boxes and recess, and now you have a phone and you're dealing with things like middle school dances and stuff like that, right? I think that's an absolute factor. I think, I love that you brought up the age range, right? And the age difference, because yes, absolutely. My brother and I are 6 years apart, and we've definitely, grown up together while growing up like apart in a lot of ways, if that makes sense, right? And so it's just all the time spent, you know what I mean? And things like that, I think really plays a key factor. But I also will speak to just as a younger sibling, right? I think part of, for me, right? Again, and all my other younger siblings, let me know what you're feeling, right? But I think for me, like part of that jealousy or part of that resentment comes from, like the amount of responsibility, I guess, that I know of my older sibling, but also like other older siblings have, and like what comes with that responsibility, right? So the way that people look to our older siblings for guidance, the way that people, that aren't just us, right? The way that people look to our older siblings for answers, and they get to help with, the real foundational, conflicts or things of that nature with the adults, right? I think that's something that we as young people, long for, is responsibility, or at least an opportunity to show or prove that we can, in our own right, in our own way, in our own, whatever, how we do it, be a responsible human being that people could look onto for, honestly, a sense of whatever addition to their livelihood, right? And so,
but the flip side to that is that often the older siblings feel like the younger ones get away with everything, so that adds right,
absolutely,
the sibling rivalry,
absolutely, or that they get more attention,
or they're getting their attention now,
right? And the imbalance, right? And I think that I think that's so real, right? And I think that I wouldn't blame an older sibling for working through or feeling emotions with that kind of shift. You know what I mean? And so I think it makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's interesting too, because as you were talking, I was thinking about with that age difference, one of the things that brought up that rivalry is y'all played video games. And because you all were close and you looked up to your big brother, I think you felt like you could do anything, right? That he could do. And then when he would beat you all the time at the games, you really couldn't understand why that was happening, and you would get so upset. And I'm like, but he's 6 years older, and you just felt like, I don't care.
I don't care. No, I press the right buttons. I know the system. I know what I'm doing, and I should have hit that shot, even though the game didn't give it to me.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, but so that's something too, that even in that kind of good time together, good relationship, right? You can still have that rivalry can really be there. And so it's very interesting. I remember, oh my gosh, and I don't know if I asked you this question, but listen, y'all, because 13 months apart, we went to the same elementary school. I was never Lynn Hurdle. I was Leslie's sister. Everywhere. I'm like, oh, my own name. And you want to talk about rivalry or whatever, but I can remember a track meet, and I wasn't on track, but we were running track, and maybe it was a competition day or whatever. And I won the race, and all I could hear from the stands was this one person going, Leslie's sister won. Like, can't even have this victory.
Keep the trophy at that point. I don't even want my medal, trophy, whatever the hell it is. I don't even want it at that point.
I can't even have the victory as me, as my name. I'm Leslie's sister. So I feel like growing up, and the other thing is, because again, close in age, we have some of the same teachers, or at least the teachers know. I mean, I can hear siblings that talk about that. Oh, the teacher who says, oh, well, your brother was so, this, that, or the other. So great. You have a lot to live up to. I've heard many siblings say that, and that can cause real resentment, or the reverse. Oh, thank God you're not anything like your brother, because your brother was a menace that whole time that I had, or your sister or whatever. It's just really, that can absolutely cause a lot of rivalry. I grew up with, my dad had 5 sisters, and there was, it was a lot of rivalry, and they were known in the neighborhood as these gorgeous women. And so there was that kind of thing to vie for attention. And we never really got to the whole root of why there was so much of that rivalry. Interesting. There was some estrangement, but not a lot. They just like to come together, and then it would fall apart. But I think that this is something that so many people experience and just don't know any different, maybe, and feel like this is the way it's supposed to be. I saw in the comments, Gordon, you were one of 5. So, hey, you can let us know your own experience if you're there. But I know that, especially in larger families, and then think about it, the larger the distance in age. I know people who, like 12, 13 years older, and they're like, I was out of the house by the time they could have really been a companion. And so that really takes work when you see siblings who are that much difference in age. It takes a lot of work. I mean, my dad, shout out Aunt Marilyn, today's your birthday. Love you, miss you. She was my dad's youngest sister, and she was 20 years old when she was born, so it's like, that's a huge difference in age. But boy, that's one thing about his sisters. He was the oldest, and he was the only boy. They looked up to him. Yes, yeah. So it's something I think that people are really looking at, struggling with, and I think it's important to talk about, rather than just accept that it's there, and that there's really, especially if it's not going well, right? If it's doing harm, then rather than accept that that's just the way it is, to really understand that there are things that you can do, right, to nurture the relationship, make the relationship different, stronger. I've heard siblings say, well, it's always been like this. We're never going to be close. And I I don't believe in giving up like that unless that person is doing serious harm to you, right? Mentally, physically, whatever. I think we should not be giving up.
Yeah, y'all can probably gauge by now that we're very much like family people. We're very much, village oriented, right? And, my brother and I have been very fortunate, again, like I've said, to have, had a village and had, other people to lean on and whatever in tough times and in good times, right? But we definitely took our relationship, I think, like, more serious and like took that to a different level because we knew we had each other like to deal with at the end of the day, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're gonna lose our parents, we're gonna lose people. These are unfortunate truths, inevitable truths. And so I think that for us, we were very much subconsciously, but even consciously, just thinking and making sure that we're as close as possible, in case of tragedy or whatever goes on. And I think part of what we're still seeing, and I don't know if we saw this in, or if you saw this, I wasn't there, in your generation, in your time growing up, but I feel like we still have a lot of, like, well, I love them because they're my sibling, but like we're not like friends. Like we don't like hang out, or like we don't spend all this time together. We don't, like we still kind of stay in our prospective spaces, even in the same household and whatever. And I feel like there has been more, definitely more of a shift as far as, the way we're seeing siblings, not just stand up for each other. And right, like there is, I think, more being developed and more closeness being worked on, right? But I think that there's a lot of gaps that people are coming into and not knowing how to like fall back from.
So you think that your generation is trying to, because y'all are the cancel generation.
And that's what I was about to say. Like, I think we still, like, we're still very much, afraid to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. We're still very much, think that, especially in these certain formative years of our lives, that like, it's the end of the world if we make this certain mistake or if we do this certain thing. We still have, struggles with vulnerability, right? And even just like letting our siblings know, like, all right, love you. You know what I mean? Like, like get home safe, like things like that. And I think once we're able to get away from, like any of the expectations that come with that way of thinking, of being vulnerable, any of the whatever roadblocks are getting in the way of us, like just taking that step and hoping that, those steps will add up to, just bigger acts of whatever you're missing, whether that's love, whether that's respect, whether that's being seen, whether that's being heard, right? Then I think we'll be able to flourish a little bit better and we'll be able to get some more friendships within our sibling dynamics. But, you're right. We absolutely are the cancel ones because we just think, if you make a mistake or if you do it publicly or whatever, or if you do it to someone of a certain caliber.
Close to each other. Like not allowing yourselves to get close to a lot of people too. I don't know.
It's a tough thing to be vulnerable. Like being vulnerable is not an easy thing, regardless of your age, regardless of whatever's going on. So, or the relationship dynamic. So like saying I love you, saying I care for you, saying I don't want anything bad to happen to you, saying that it would hurt or suck if we weren't friends anymore, or if we weren't around each other. Those are very like heart statements. Those are heart statements. And those are not easy things, to come by with a lot of people because you're working from the inside out as opposed to the outside going in. Right. And you have, I think, a little bit more power, or if not power is the right word, I guess a little bit more just like control or structure when you're going outside in. Because, you control, I guess, like how much you digest and like what you put in and what you end up spitting out, right? But when you're going outside in, like inside out, and you're working from the heart, you're leading from the soul, you're leading from the spirit, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot less power in whatever that you have because you're essentially putting those words and things out there for the universe to just like kind of take out and do the rest with. And it's a very like nerve-wracking thing for young people to do when they think everything about the world is already like big and scary and like,
Yeah, and
Things
you
like
don't
that.
do a lot of like for us, we didn't have a lot of inside time. If we did, we were spending it with friends, somebody's
Yeah.
house or whatever. Like we spent times outside and and if we did family events, gatherings and things like that. So I think family definitely comes from especially my mom, who was an only child, who always wanted siblings and really wanted us to be close. It's interesting. She used to say, "You're going to be close. You're not going to fight like your aunts. You're going to be close." And I was like, boy, she is really lucky that that was pretty much the message in our head, because there wasn't as much put into making sure that we were,
Right,
except
right.
you better be there for your
Better be
sister.
there,
You better
right.
be there. You better and I know I do that too, because I just believe in that. I think if you're blessed enough to have family, whether it's siblings or cousins or whatever, that are family that you really feel, and if you're blessed enough to have people that you consider to be family, your chosen family, that you need to nurture that. And
100%,
you need to have those rules that say, you may be wrong. We used to grow up with that in my generation. They may be wrong, but you never tell them that in public. You stand beside them, behind them, and then when you get them alone, you let them know, that was wrong, you were messed up, but you never show anything but a united front to other people, right? When someone is family to you, and especially someone that's a sibling. But people have I call them bonus siblings. People say step step brother, step sister, whatever. I'm not sure where that term comes from. I'm not understanding the step. I don't know. But anyway,
If anyone knows where the step thing comes from, let me know. Actually, always
I don't
Never know.
vibe with that. I don't see how that does anything but divide. That's your brother, that's your sister, whatever.
I don't think you're the only one that thinks that too.
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard that in.
Oh, I know. I think that's why people
The
started
word
using
step.
like bonus or whatever, or just not saying step at all.
I'd say brother or sister.
Yeah,
that's
that's my
good.
brother. Or I love the people with the chosen family, my brother from another mother, sister from another mister. Like people really want to acknowledge that it doesn't matter what the world says, right? You're a family to me. But I think that, again, I come from a generation that I won't say that we were taught how to really nurture. We were told, right? You are gonna be close. You are gonna stand up for you. Like there was a lot of that. So you went with that.
Mhm.
But I don't know that there was a lot of, well, we're doing this so you have time together, bonding time. You spent, my sister and I shared the same room, and that can be good, and that can be like, oh my God, where do I get my own space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And siblings, that's another thing, right? Space. Do you really have anything to your own? There are siblings who they loved that they didn't have their own room. They loved it. And then others who gosh, I just really want a space of my own, or I want my parents to myself, my mom or my dad to myself. Never get any time with them. Again, larger families, and it doesn't necessarily have to be larger families. It could just be two siblings and feeling like they didn't get enough time with the parent.
For sure.
Right.
So and all these things are considered, at the end of the day for long-lasting relationships, right? Like, how do these seeds that we've planted, how do these seeds that we've watered and some that we haven't touched at all, right, affected long-lasting relationships, right? Because you definitely want a sibling that's always going to stand up for you, fight for you, all those things, right? And you definitely also want someone that you can play around with, joke around with, get on each other with, right? But it's all about establishing a healthy balance at the end of the day, because, we're seeing still so much of people who are leaned one way or the other too much, I guess, for someone else's liking. And that's just causing gaps in the relationship, right? And again, there is a healthiness to the competitiveness of having a sibling and wanting to, like we said before, motivate each other to, work a little harder, get that extra rep in, get that, take that extra step, take that chance, take that leap, right, for whatever it is that you want to do in your life, right? And then, we all know how life goes. There's just times where we don't get what we want when we want it, right? So it's like, what do we do with that anger? Where do we place it? And sometimes, I think that we see, that anger, those feelings misplaced and put onto our siblings. And that really just starts to mess with, how those future family gatherings go, or how much you guys talk in between, living in different places, right? All of these things that, absolutely live your life, do what you want to do, right? But I feel like there's just nothing closer and better than, than when that sibling relationship is really locked in. So we really wanted to have this conversation out of, just our expression of, how much we love our siblings, how much we take pride in our role as siblings, and also because we have seen the estrangement, we have seen the distance become built, and they're feeding into continuing to build the distance, right? As opposed to, coming together and approaching that conversation in a different way. And so I think for us, we're just about, there's not one way to do things. As long as we're here and we're breathing, there's an opportunity to do something different. And, if we have a chance, then, let's take that chance and, let's connect more than try to, disconnect at the end of the day. So,
yeah,
absolutely.
So then let's talk about it. Let's talk about 3 signs of healthiness in sibling rivalry. The first is competition produces. There it is. Thank you. Competition produces admiration and growth, right? Hey, there's competition, and a lot of competition can be good. As these days, though, competition is some other thing. It's a whole nother thing. I'm not just talking about siblings. I'm just saying the idea of competing has become life or death. Literally for people, but competition can be a healthy thing, particularly if it produces admiration and growth. So they see you, who's going to get the better grade, right? There's a commercial out now with 2 siblings, young women. I think they run track, and it's a great commercial. I think they're even twins, but it's just, they are motivating one another. One gets the best pair of sneakers, right? And like, oh, okay, one's out there practicing earlier, that kind of thing. But it's a real admiration. So if you win, I win too. Or if you win, that motivates me to the next win. Or if you're playing in sports game, or if we're both performers, we're creative, whatever, that there's this growth in pushing each other to be better, and then being able to cheer for one another. If you really can't cheer for your sibling in the thing that they do, even if it's the thing that you do too, then that is not healthy sibling rivalry.
Absolutely. Yeah. I see this a lot in sports. I bet other people definitely see this a lot in sports. I'm definitely a big Peyton and Eli Manning guy, right? So watching the fact that, their dad, they come from a lineage of football professionals who are actually successful, right, in their eras. So, just thinking about Peyton when he first came out, being the man, getting the Super Bowl, all those things, especially in Indy. And then you can only imagine that Eli is thinking, well, not only am I playing D1 football, right, but the NFL is right there, and I'm going to be playing against you, and I'm going to show that, I'm my own Manning, right? And he absolutely did. And he absolutely did. He absolutely did in his own way, right? There's also, these boxing twins that have been coming up for a while now, right? One of them's more on the fighting side. The other's the coach. He's in the corner. He's in his ear and helping out with all that, right? But you can only imagine that there was a time where they're sparring, figuring each other out, and figuring out where they want to go. And what I imagine the coach one was probably well, obviously I want to fight, but maybe I got to thrive on this coaching stuff. Maybe that's where my championships are are attributed to. You know what I mean? Like me having been in the corner helping out and being, behind the scenes and all that stuff, keeping things sharp. So I think that, when we're able to, I love how you talk about celebrate each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like regardless of what the role is, right? And push each other to do the best that we can do in that prospective field, then I mean, that's just bounds for success for everyone at the end of the day. So I love a good success story when people really use it and use each other in the right way.
And especially if you don't take the bait when others try to bait you about your sibling.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true,
right.
That's true.
Well,
that's
your
true.
brother's got super low. What do you,
What do you have?
you think you're manning enough to do all of that kind of stuff. And you don't have to be a celebrity for people to try to bait you about your sibling.
Absolutely. I dealt with that in like middle school. Yeah. I'm like, bro, I'm in middle school. Like, let me figure myself out, and then I'll come back to you. So
the next one is when harm is done, it's resolved through conversation. Now, that may not be the first thing that people go to. I hear so many siblings who talk about fights, that they actually
went to blows
or whatever, or they're yelling, screaming, name calling, or whatever. But at the end of the day, right, whether it is that your parents have to say, okay, enough, get to the table, let's talk this through, and you're able to do it, right? Because it may not be your idea yet, right? Somebody else brings the two of you to it, or the five of you, the however many to it. But the fact that you come, you stay, you actually have the conversation, and it's done, right? And you then move on to being together, having that good relationship, or building that good relationship. That's really important. Or if you have the tools and you do it yourself, hey, knock on your door, hey man, sorry, or hey sis, sorry that happened, right? And you talk it out, and then you go through. That's definitely a sign that even with sibling rivalry, it's healthy.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's very hard to come to the table. So, absolutely, I respect anyone in any situation who's able to come to the table and know that there's a conflict that needs to be resolved, and really give themselves to that moment of, just trying to achieve an end goal of just resolution at the end of the day, right? Yeah. But specifically with siblings, for sure, if we're talking about longevity, if we're talking about seeds planted, right? And healthy ones planted, right? When you're able to come to the table, and yes, there's going to be part of that where you're like, calling out the behaviors and other people that, are what's pissing you off and all that stuff, right? But when you're really able to get to, this action made me feel this because I was triggered by this, whatever it is, right? And really just effectively communicate. I think that only shows yourself and to yourself that you're willing to do a very, very hard thing for the sake of something bigger than you. And then that's going to show your sibling at the end of the day that you did that. You're saying, like, they see that same thing. You know what I mean? Like, I can respect that. Even there's been times where my brother has had to come to me and be like, bro, my bad. Like, that's my bad. And, that's not easy, I assume, for anyone, but especially older siblings. I can only imagine that's not easy for you guys, right? But that's a very big thing, even though it's a very small ask. And so really give yourself to that moment for the sake of something bigger, because that sibling love, that sibling relationship is really a beautiful thing that you want to hold on to as much as possible if you have the opportunity to bring yourselves out of whatever tough situation or dynamic that you're in.
Yeah. And the last one is it's not fueled by parents, guardians, family. I mean, that is, playing favorites, teasing one or the other, comparing them to each other, pushing them to be not friends, really, to be resentful of each other. Yeah. That families can do that. And it is really not a healthy thing. I've heard people say, oh, it's okay, right? I fought with my siblings or whatever. That'll help build them up. It builds character. It builds what it really doesn't. It builds resentment. It builds anger. and it builds a divide between them where they don't want to even be in the same room together, much less come to the family holidays or even hang out with each other. That's the other pieces. So I think that if that's what's happening in the family and you're calling it normal, you need to really rethink that, think about it, and look at how you might be fueling something that is really creating tension in your household and tension for generations to come, because that can happen too. That spills over to their children if they have children, or even their spouses. And that's not a good look.
I agree. Yeah, this is one where untreated, it can really start messing with people's mental health. It can really start messing with people's own sense of worth, how they view worth, their own worth. There's just so many ways in which untreated that can go to a very, very dark place, to be quite frank. And I think that it's just something to be extra mindful of. You know what I mean? Like, make sure that the love that you're giving is not picky choosy as a parent or an adult or whatever. Like you're equal, you're fair, and all of that. I'd say also that the consequences are fair and all of those things, right? We definitely see where like punishments are different and things like that. And so I just think fairness is key. And if you don't want that distance that you were talking about, but also just some of the own sense of self to be dysregulated, then I would say for sure keep an eye on this stuff as people who are on the outside looking in on a sibling relationship, for sure.
Yep. Awesome. All right, so that's how we know it's healthy.
Yeah, and then we got a couple of signs for unhealthy. I only came up with 2 for you guys. Sorry. So if you guys have a third one, you guys type it in the chat, or if you have a third one, you come up with it right now. But let's talk about some signs of unhealthiness in a sibling rivalry, right? So first, resentment stunts opportunities for growth or connection, right? We definitely started talking about this in the first one. We were talking about competition producing admiration and growth. This is the complete opposite, right? So maybe that family member has been, gassing up this one sibling so much for their accomplishments that, the next time they have a game, it's like, well, I don't really want to go. Like, they have a championship game or they have a game where they can break a record. Well, I don't really need to be there. I don't really want to be there, right? I thank God that for me and for our my personal relationship with my brother, right? We've never gotten to this place. You know what I mean? It's never gotten to a point where, because we were feeling some way about something going on between the two, that it stopped us from showing up, showing that love, still being a united front. And so but I know that that's not the case for everyone, and I know that's not the case all the time, even in some of the most healthy relationships, right? So that's definitely a sign and something to look out for of when that resentment starts to really become a roadblock for that connection or that growth opportunity to just understand each other, be there for each other more.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely true. You really have to pay attention to, if it's you, why you're feeling this way. What is it that you're not getting, right, from your own growth and development, the people in your lives, your parents, those who are raising you, or adults around you? What are you not getting that is leading you to feel like this? Because I can remember, it's interesting, I talked about, being Leslie's sister, which it wasn't terrible. It's just that, I really had a name on one of my names. But I remember when you guys used to play ball in the park and they would call you little Dwayne Wade, because they called him Dwayne Wade or something like that. And you were like, yeah, that's cool. It didn't like bother you or whatever. I mean, I think that is, if someone, don't call me that, don't associate, I'm not my, like, when you see that, either if it's you doing it, or if it's a sibling, that's a red flag. That's a danger sign that you want to really talk about so you can nip that in the bud.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, because there was a time where I was fine with that, right? Like that being the way I was described you know, like this is so and so's brother, right? Little bro, right? So I always had like positive connotations around it, right? So I felt like I was being associated with positivity, right? So I had no problem with it. But then I got to like just a certain age, or there's just a certain moment where I was just like, all right, yeah, like that's cool, but like I have my own name, I'm my own person. You know what I mean? Like even if we were different, we're still two different, you know, like people who are worthy and like who can, you know, still have that same effect on people, right? So it's kind of like it became definitely one of those things of like, give me that opportunity to just show you like this is who I am, right? But I noticed for sure some of those feelings I was putting onto my brother, thinking like, you know, why are you so great? Or why do you keep doing things that make you great? This is pissing me off. Like now I gotta live up to this standard and all this stuff, right? And you know, that just like was so that was so mine to like take on, even though you absolutely said it, right? Like they're like people will bait you, right? But like I absolutely took that bait on, and once I reached those ages and things like that, I definitely started to think about like, whoa, like, you know, where are these feelings starting to be placed, right? And I definitely caught it any and every time when, you know, I started really putting it like on my brother, because I was like, it's not him at the end of the day. Like it's me who's going home at the end of the day, who has to live with me and love me and see me as, you know, this great person who I love and respect. And that's not going to come from any other relationship, right? If anything, if I get that locked in, it'll make me a better brother. So absolutely want to make sure you're watching just where that resentment goes. And the next, this is really important. I think we want to get into some of this, you know, around the bullying versus the horseplay, right? Like, so I think that there's absolutely a place for messing around, for even sometimes it being a little physical, like all that stuff. I'm a brother, so, and I have a brother, so like I'm obviously coming from that lens, right? Having had a brother, like we wrestled, we horseplayed, we jumped off this and onto each other, like that's what we did, right? And I think that it's one of those things. And then also on top of that, you know, we also both are very mouthy, right? So there's a lot of trash talk, there's a lot of, you know, insults being thrown, all that stuff. I know all of my people out there with siblings, chosen, biological, whatever. You guys can relate to that, right? Like if it's not physical, it's at least word of mouth, right? And I think the key thing here is that if you're not able to come out of that and literally like snap out of it and like be able to, you know, like, all right, bro, like love you, or like, all right, sibling, like, you know, let me know if you need anything from the store. Like I'm going to the store, let me know if you need anything, or like whatever it is, get home safe, all those different things, all of those vulnerable statements and connectory statements. If you're not able to make those and do both, then it does just become you being a bully, regardless of the age range or the older sibling or younger sibling, right? Like if you're really not able to honestly like be an a-hole sometimes and then be soft too, you know, really because this is someone that you do love, you do care about, and you just don't want to leave those words and stuff to yourself. You know, I think it's really important that people hear that from you if that's what you feel. So especially for a sibling relationship, if you're not able to do both, then we really just have a bully in the household and a bully in the dynamic. And I really respect the fact that honestly, like to this day, I don't think anyone really respects bullies, like regardless of accomplishments, right? People even said about Michael Jordan, like, would I go back and win that ring with him? No. Like he absolutely obliterated me as a person, right? Like, yes, helped my family in the long run, helped me in the long run, but would I do it again? Absolutely not. I would not subject myself to being spoken to that way. I will not subject myself to honestly just not hearing enough of both, right? And so, you know, balance is everything, especially to me. I'm someone who's all about, you know, definitely being able to do both, but it's one of those things you have to snap yourself in and out of consciously, I believe. So.
Well, this one is interesting because I hate the horseplay, but it's so funny because I hear my friends who have sisters all the time talk about the fights they have, fights, you know,
and like real, like not slapping, like so bro.
But they don't do, you know, we don't do like the horseplay kind of stuff. That stuff would. Really, just I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. But again, if you can come through that, out of that, and either know when you've taken it too far or know that we're just playing around, right? It may have gotten heated, but we are still good to shake hands at the end of the day and go hang or play a video game together, shoot some hoops or whatever it is we're going to do. Then I understand. But the bullying, that's absolutely something that so many siblings experience. Absolutely hate it. It tears relationships apart. It doesn't make you someone that they want to see coming through the door or spend any time with, holidays or anything. Especially I've seen it done in front of friends, right? So whether it's their friends and they want to show off by bullying, or whether it's your friends, you know, and they come around and make sure they bully you when your friends are around. Like I've seen relationships that have happened like that. So I agree with this one. And I don't even think we need a third, because I think people understand
100%.
when it is absolutely not healthy. But when you look at a lot of the research, it says, you know, it's something, sibling rivalry is very common, and it can really develop things like self-advocacy, being able to speak up, learning how to speak up for yourself, learning how to set boundaries, learning to just even be motivated and set higher goals for yourself, learning how to resolve conflicts and have conversation. Like that's your first thing. I know for me, it's worth whatever it is. It's interesting. I haven't had this conversation with my sister, so she usually watches the show. So maybe we'll have a conversation like, you know, did you think I was the one that was the favorite one? Did you? I'm like, because I grew up hearing that my sister was smart. She was really smart. She went to all these schools for smart people, you know, including Princeton and Hunter College. Like and I was the creative one, which nobody really cared about creativity when I was coming up in the schools. But in any case, we haven't talked about it, but I think that it's really important, because the one thing that I will say too is that we have so many memories together. We have so many things where we can finish each other's sentence. People hate to play certain games with us because we don't have to give long. What's the one where you gotta guess whatever is the word and you can't say the word?
It's like taboo.
Yeah, taboo.
Yeah.
They hate playing taboo with us because we can just say something from our childhood that connects to the word, and it's just quick, and I love it. She loves it. I don't know. I think they're worth really preserving and working at.
Yeah, 100%. You know, we've definitely touched on this show, you know, multiple times about like family estrangement and things of that nature, and how much we obviously don't want that to happen. But I think that this is a dynamic that we don't explore enough, or at least not deeply enough, right? We definitely hear the stories all the time, you know, from people we look up to, people that are our neighbors, right? People that are in our family themselves, right? Of, you know, how these sibling dynamics work and how they feel for them, right? But as far as, you know, really the tangibles of, you know, what does it take to foster a new understanding within this relationship, you know, as you grow up, as you have distance between, you know, where people live, all these different things, and you have to start, you know, kind of thinking of a friendship within that siblinghood, right? I think that, you know, this conversation definitely served a purpose as far as getting into, you know, just the natural parts of what come with, again, living with people all the time, spending that much time with people, being that vulnerable, right? Them, people having, you know, eyes on you in a certain way, if you know what I mean. But just not letting some of those things turn into unnatural reactions, feelings, actions taking place. Because I'm telling you, we are on this earth to be closer to each other than we are to be apart. And I think that, you know, family is such a blessing. It's such a privilege, right? And so if you got that, please do whatever you can out there to keep that those relationships flowing and keep them strong, as well as, for my only children out there, right? Like, definitely email us at some point. What do you think about siblinghood? Did you want a sibling growing up? Did you feel like we were missing out on that? Was it better for you in some way to be the only child, right? What does that look like? I've definitely heard many responses from there too. So always open to more. I really, really appreciate this conversation just because I, again, really take a lot of pride in being a brother. I love to celebrate my brother, love my brother. He's the absolute man. And absolutely, we get on each other when we get on each other. And, we are just normal siblings, right? But, I definitely think we've done a lot of work behind the scenes, but also together to make sure that we don't let any of those natural, jealous, whatever feelings, really mess with the longevity of what we're trying to build here. So really hoping that for everyone else, if that's what's in the cards, for sure. So, guys, this is great. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you guys want to see more, please check us out on e360tv.com, Trajectory channel. Also, check us out on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. Please check us out on Facebook if you want to watch live over there, Working It Out TV show. Also on YouTube, subscribe over there. We're definitely going to be putting out clips over there too on shorts and all that stuff. But check us out there at Working It Out Across Generations. Our email for all of you, if you want to just send us some love, you want to send us some show topics, send us comments, send us whatever you want. Please check us out. Working It Out Across the Generations at e360tvlive.com. Guys, you know what we say. Conflict is here to teach you something about yourself. So go out there and find out what that is. I'm Justin.
I am Dr. Lynn.
And this is Working It Out. See you next week.